Right, we are now live. Good afternoon, good people of Momentus. It's a sunny day here up in the Northwest, and as you can see, I'm not my own. I'm joined for the last of this week's interviews by a good friend of mine who I've known for probably the best part of about 4 years now. We've networked together, we've collaborated together, we very almost launched a new business together before realizing actually there was a whole load more to it than we even thought, and we didn't fancy the idea of getting it wrong and potentially being in jail. But that's another story for another live session. But I'm here with Dave Heffernan, who is a specialist provider of mental health solutions, and particularly in the personal care sector. So let's find out a bit more about Dave. Good afternoon, young man. How are you?
Hi, Jay. I'm all right, thank you. It's I don't know what you're talking about with the weather because it's just about to rain where we are.
You're
I'm
in the
only a
wrong
few
bit,
miles down
wrong
the road.
bit of the Northwest. You're in the wrong bit of the Northwest.
Must
Needs to
be.
just come a little bit north and a little bit more west. Tell people watching now, or even people on replay, tell us a bit about you, what you do, before I hit you with my first and main question.
Right, okay, so as you alluded to, I'm a provider of mental health and anxiety solutions. It was originally with corporates and companies, small to medium-sized companies, but in the last year and a half since lockdown, I've niched into the personal care sector, so beauticians, nail techs, hairdressers, and it's become a really good way of understanding what on earth is happening on the ground at the moment. Because with the nail techs and the beauticians, they've gone about 9 months out of 12 where they wasn't making an income because they had to close the salons down. And so it was a section of society that had been completely ignored and forgotten. At one point, when they was making the decisions to close certain sectors down, beauticians and nail bars were lumped in together with massage parlors. And that was from an old rule of about 1887, where massage parlors were a completely different outcome. And so for quite a few months, government were closing this section down, thinking it was all part and parcel of the same thing. And so luckily the likes of the British Beauty Council and Babtech and people like that got a voice now within government, and it's slowly opening back up, and people realize that it actually is one of the safest places to be during a pandemic. Not the safest place. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and I remember when we caught up a while ago, when you were on the verge of realizing that this was a good area to niche into, and you explained a bit why, and just totally got it. That industry, like I guess some others, where their income has gone from whatever it was to zero overnight, that's hard work. I actually put a survey out into in one of my other Facebook groups that I'm in, and just saying, what for people in there is one of the has the biggest impact on your mental health, and the majority of the votes came in saying financial security. So you think if it is your financial security and your financial income has gone to zero overnight, it doesn't take a scientist to work out that your mental health is going to be put at risk there. But I imagine we'll explore that a bit more as we go through. But what I want to do, Dave, is just start the conversation off with a simple question of what does health mean to you?
Okay, well, I'm acutely aware of what health means because I've got quite complex health issues myself. But if we just look at one aspect, the mental health, and ignore the physical health, or vice versa, we just look at the physical health and ignore the mental health, then it's just going to be completely imbalanced, the two, and just not going to work together. So we need to look at the whole package, the physical health and the mental health. I've got a rare form of autoimmune disease. I've got severe spinal canal stenosis, which ultimately the doctors say will lead to paralysis. And I've also got paralyzed diaphragm with 30% vital lung capacity. I found I was also pre-diabetic because my diet was absolutely shocking. And one thing I found over the years is there is very little support or help with people with chronic illnesses. If you've got cancer, the support for the mental health side of things is absolutely spot on and perfect. But for everybody else, it seems to be severely lacking. And when people have got these chronic illnesses where it's showing physical symptoms, that can have such a massive impact because it's like Chinese water torture, just drip, 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 a little bit of pain, a little bit of pain, a little bit of pain. And over time, the mental health deteriorates, and then it just self-manifests then to more physical pain and more physical stress. So to attack both together. So for the last year now, I've been It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change where I'm almost vegan. I've had the odd moments where, you know, I have meat and stuff like that, but it's a thing called the starch solution. So it's basically when all the old civilizations and all the old world countries like Chile and South America and Japan, when you look at all the older generation where they've got no chronic illness, they've got no health issues, they've not got no diabetes, take a look at what they was eating, and it was all these starches like sweet potatoes, rice, legumes, beans, and that sort of stuff. And then the younger generation who were invited to eat the Western processed diet, then started having all these chronic illnesses and stuff like that.
Right.
And the body's an incredible tool where if you fuel it right, it will look after itself in the vast majority of occasions. So this just fascinated me, and I looked at, I did a lot of research on this guy, and he was credible. It made a lot of sense, and so now I just use meat as a seasoner to the meal rather than as the main part of the meal. And I overload it with the starches and the starchy vegetables like the greens and the yellows and stuff like that. And my diabetes has been reversed. I'm feeling the best shape of my life. I lost 4.5 stone. You know, what I mean? So yeah, and the clarity in that mental fog disappears. No money wasted, no drugs taken.
No, that's brilliant, and I'm glad you said that. I think everyone I've spoken to live this week, the pre-recorded interviews I did that I've been going live, launching this week, kind of putting them on social media. Everyone has said you can't dissect, you can't split your mental health and your physical health. And one guy, Spencer Locker, said there is a third element to that, which is your emotional well-being as well. It's like a triangle. It's physical well-being, mental well-being, and emotional well-being. You know, and they're harmonious, and they should be. You should treat them that way, so that you don't sacrifice one for the other. You just say, actually, how do I look after all three, and recognizing that they help each other. And I totally get that. I know the difference between when I get up first thing in the morning and go to the gym or go for a run or do something, even though there is that space of a few minutes at the beginning, like there was this morning when the alarm went off and I just thought, I don't want to do this. But I'd committed with my daughter-in-law that we would go to the gym together. And when I woke up, I saw a text from her and I thought, yes, she's going to have said, look, can we knock it on the head? And it said, I'm up, I'm ready, you know, when you come and pick me up. And I thought, I've got to go. But I'm glad I did, because driving back from the gym, I just thought, I feel good. I've seen the morning. It's even better when it's light outside at 6 a.m. But mentally, I already feel ready for today. Whereas even if I had another hour's sleep, which you'd have thought would be good, I wouldn't have felt the same at that point in the morning. I would have just felt probably, right, I've got to get up, I've got to shower, have some breakfast before I crack on with work, crack on with kind of going to see a client. Just such a difference, getting that physical bit as well. So
I think you raise a good point, because if you let the brain engage as well, ego will just pop in and try and keep you in your comfort zone, which may be stressed or depressed or low or tired or whatever it may be. Mel Robbins, an American sort of well-being coach, she has the 5-4-3-2-1 method, which I use quite a lot, especially in the morning when you're getting up and you can't be bothered. And it's just basically counting down 5-4-3-2-1 and then doing or not doing, whichever way you want to go. But the fact that you've stopped that cycle of overthinking, once you made that decision, you made the decision and you make peace with it.
I like that.
So,
that's I was going to say that's good, because I it either works when if I start debating and thinking, well, you know, I'll go for a walk at lunchtime instead, or there'll be rugby training later, I'll go to that, or I'll do a doubly good session tomorrow morning. That either that side, that voice either rules and the alarm gets set for an hour later, or the other side says, well, look, your brain's awake now because you're having a stupid debate about whether you should get up or not. Just get up. And sometimes that wins. But I like that kind of it's like Brad Burton says, like, you know, 20 seconds or 24 seconds, 24 minutes, etc. It's like, you can't make a decision that quickly. And 5-4-3-2-1 is perfect, because it's the countdown. You know, at that point, you can't then go, I'll give it another 5-4-3-2-1. I'll snooze it. You've just got to make the decision. I really like that.
It really works well, because I'm not a big fan of writing content, or, you know, I'm part of a team at the moment where we do weekly blogs, and the thought of sitting down and writing a blog destroys my soul. I'm also a columnist for a global magazine aimed at nail professionals. So we have to write that. I've got no choice but to write that article every month. And so this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 really works for me. I get myself in a situation where I've got the laptop open, so I can't even procrastinate about that. And I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I just start typing. And it's amazing how quickly inspiration comes once you just commit and make that decision. So it really works for me. But you made a great point there as well about you talking about rugby. And I always think about you talking about that triangle of emotional well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being. And rugby is a perfect example of this, because there is no differentiation between the women's game, the disabled game, and the men's game. It's all one. If you go onto the Rugby League website, you can't differentiate between any of them. It's just one game of rugby, where it's women, disabled. Football's really lacking behind this with the women's game and the disabled game and what we, but rugby have got it absolutely perfect. And so it's a great analogy for the three, with the mental well-being, health, physical well-being and emotional well-being. And rugby, that is the perfect scenario, the perfect case where everything just works perfectly in sync. And if you can bring that along to your mental well-being and your physical well-being, the emotional well-being, you're on a winner massively.
Yeah, and I agree. And I'm just going to do a little shout out, because one of the interviews, the pre-recorded ones that I did, that I think went out on Tuesday this week, and it's on the Momentus YouTube channel. It will be on this page as well if you want to look at it. Was with Paul Wood, so ex-England and GB Rugby League player, Warrington Wolves. And he's gone through obviously the physical side of rugby. He's gone through the mental side of it, of trying to perform at his best, trying to take advice from people, trying to deal with, kind of drawing that part of his career to a close and thinking, what do I do next? It was a really good interview. In fact, it was one of the longest interviews out of all of them. But I know Paul, I've worked with him, I've coached him a little bit, and, and we just have these great conversations. So yeah, if you want to build upon that, to anyone watching, and particularly from a rugby angle, then do watch that interview. Dave, if I can ask, and you don't have to answer, you talked around the fact that there's a few things you've got physically, mentally going on, which which impact your well-being. And I know you've shared those with me in the past. I think I'm just thinking for people who are watching, who whether it is something they've got physical about, or about their health, kind of their internal health, that for them could hold them back and could make them think, I have this and that stops me doing stuff. You're a husband, you're a dad to two amazing young boys. What thought pattern have you gone through? Do you maybe still go through, where I'm sure you must have days where you think, why have I got this? But actually, do you know what? I'm going to seize this day. I'm going to seize tomorrow and be the best I can.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. When I went to the spinal surgeon and the consultant to talk about the spinal canal stenosis, I told him at the time, I said, look, I don't want no fluffy bedside manner. I want it straight. I said, I've got strategies, I can cope. And no matter how traumatic a situation is or how desperate things look, there's always something to be grateful for, and there's always a positive and a learning curve. And so it's ingrained in me to just automatically think, like, what's in my control, what's positive, what's the learning curve, find them and move forward. And so when the consultant started speaking, his words to me were, if you was to go down the surgical route, which is the only option available to yourself, you may as well book into Dignitas, because at least you'll have a nice holiday to Switzerland beforehand. And when I said tell me straight, I didn't mean in that way, because that was superb. To be able to think like that on your feet is just superb.
Yeah.
And my overriding emotion at the time, I stood up and I thanked him. I said, genuinely, I thank you. And he was shaking his head and said, I'm confused. I said, I just told you, if you go surgery, you're dead. I said, but the very fact that you said there was a 100% chance means a great deal, because if you would have said there was a 40% chance or 50% chance, as you alluded to, and my husband have got 2 kids, that may well have been playing heavy on my mind. So rather than taking my focus, to the kids, I'm now taking my focus thinking about, is it worth the risk? Is it not worth the risk? And it could send me to spiral depression or whatever. So the fact you've now taken that decision out of my hands, I can now become even more acutely aware of my role model job for my kids and being a good husband. So I thank you for that. So because why would I not be grateful? Not many people get that opportunity to be acutely aware of just how precious life is and just how precious your kids are. And, you know, we just go through life on autopilot. Whereas I'm grateful every single day now when I wake up. First thing I see is Jack or Ben. I'm grateful straight away.
Yeah.
But I'm not one of these people who just sit by and just accept my lot in life. You know, I've come off all my tablets. At one point, I was on 36 tablets a day plus morphine. I've come off all that. And only recently, I think about a month and a half ago, I completed a virtual Mount Everest challenge walk, which was, I think, about 39 miles. And this is somebody who was told I can't be walking anywhere without being breathless or my back.
Yeah.
And my thoughts at the time was, if I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, because it said it's either paralysis or death, if I'm going to end up in a wheelchair, I would rather end up in a wheelchair because I deserve to be there. Not by sitting on the settee, being a sloth and being lazy, and then ending up in a wheelchair, because that's the prognosis. I'd rather suck the marrow out of life and just do what I need to do. And then at least when I'm sat in that wheelchair, because, well, at least I walked Everest, at least I climbed Everest, at least I did this, at least I did that. And there's no regret then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's really powerful.
I would say don't let the illness define who you are, because there's still plenty of things that you can do, and focus on the stuff that you can do, and don't waste any energy on the stuff that's out of your control, because it will just send you into a spiral. But if you focus on the stuff that's within your control, life's even more beautiful.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this, kind of these interviews I'm doing as part of Men's Health Week, which is a part of Men's Health Month. And as a couple of people I've spoken to have iterated, and I know you're an advocate of, it's not just that we become aware for a week or a month and then we park it for 51 weeks or 11 months. This is everyday stuff. We just, I just wanted to make sure that I was bringing together a lot of brilliant people to give their view, give their advice, give their opinions, whilst, my audience's eyes would probably be a bit more open to it. So I don't want it to, people watching to think this is just an advice this week thing. This is stuff you take with you every day. But Men's Health Week or Men's Health Month is because men don't talk as much or as often or as openly as women. And whilst suicide rates are high in both, there is, I guess, that side that they are a bit higher in men and of a certain age bracket. And if we as men could just talk more, could just reach out to someone more, or have the courage when someone asks us if we're okay to actually give them the truth and not say, yeah, I'm fine, or I'm okay. We have the courage to say, do you know what, I'm not okay, and then in whatever manner open up to someone. What's your you do a lot of keynote speaking, and I've heard you speak, so you must get people who come up to you after an event or want to work with you after an event. What's your view on why you think people, and I guess men, don't talk openly as much as they could or should?
My experience, I used to work for a national charity for pre and postnatal depression, and I used to do a lot of the social media side, looking after the men's section of the group. And there was only me who was the admin, because I barred all women from being part of the admin and moderating group. And my experience was I was probably putting in a good 14, 15 hours shift, just constantly replying to messages from men who were opening up, saying they hate the wife, and I don't like the idea of hating my wife because I know it's not her, etc. But I just feel like I want to hurt her, or stuff like that. And my experience is men will talk if they're given the right environment to talk, where they're not judged. I allude to rugby again. They've got an amazing program called Offload, where Salford, Wigan, St Helens and Warrington, they've got an amazing team of people where every week, every couple of weeks, men can come into the ground and just offload and just be part of this group of people. And it's amazing. And it just shows, if you give them that safe space, that environment where they feel comfortable, men will talk. And it's a bit of a misnomer in the fact that when people say men don't talk, that then sends a message that, there's nowhere for people to come and talk. You know what I mean? So we need to change the language a little bit and say, you know what, men are talking. And once we sort of change that narrative, change that message, because men are talking, It's just that we need more space for people, for the men to come, and it needs to be raised more as well on social media that men are talking, and that then will filter down to the people who don't feel like they want to talk. But again, so many people want to be the hero, and they want to try and save that person, and all we can do is offer them a safe space without judgment when they're ready. And as long as men know that, then they will come to you when they're ready. I had one a couple of days back who was feeling suicidal, and he came up to me and said, you know what? I said, if it wasn't for hearing you speak, and this was somebody within the beauty industry, he said, if it wasn't for hearing you speak and just your positive language around suicide and around, you know, mental health, I probably would have took my life. Said I was that close to taking my life, but I knew there was a space I could go and be heard. So we just need to change the narrative that men don't talk to, men do talk and are getting support and giving them that environment.
Yeah, and I think, go on, sorry.
That once we do that, then suicide rates will go down because men will feel comfortable about talking.
Yeah. And I think the other thing you've said, and that you just said, you know, that person had been, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that they heard you speak, I think there's men talking and there's men listening. And I think the important thing to remember to people who are, I guess, like you, is that men are listening. I interviewed another good friend, a guy called Tom Murphy, earlier in the week, and I don't think he shared it necessarily on the live that we did, but when I was actually with him a couple of weeks ago, face to face with him, we were talking and catching up, and he said that he'd had a message from kind of one of his connections on LinkedIn, and they said, I just want to say thank you for, you turn up on LinkedIn every day, whether it's a post, a video, a live, and you don't know, but actually I was close to just calling it a day and ending everything. But actually your daily messages that you know, it's not just about positivity, but it's about recognizing you're not on your own in terms of what you're experiencing. Others have gone through it, others are going through it, others, you know, might be going through the very early stages of a depression, a burnout, an overwhelm, whatever it is. And you're just, every day I've listened to you because you've made me feel that I'm not alone. You've made me feel like I've got a purpose, you know, I've got a hope. There is something I need to live for and I want to live for. You've kept me alive, and you don't know it because I don't like, you know, just to hit the like button. I don't comment, but I watch every day. I wait for your posts because men are listening. People are listening, and there's, you know, they'll find the right time. You know, the more we can create the right space for people to talk, then that's even better. As you said, you know, people are talking. We just need to enable more of it. So the more we can do that, the better. But let's also remember that people are listening. And so those of you, I think, that are, you know, and operating and experienced in the mental health profession, then please do keep talking because people are listening. And I think that's equally as important as letting people know that you're there to have a conversation as well.
I think there's a big issue at the moment with social media. You know, if somebody's saying, "Oh, I feel low, I feel down," you get this reams of chat saying, "Inbox me, are you okay? You know, I'm here for you, whenever," etc., etc. And the conversations that I have with people who are extremely low, they constantly say, "You know what? I tried phoning my mate, but he didn't answer." Now, if somebody is to the point of being suicidal, sort of logic kind of goes out the window. So it may be 3 o'clock in the morning when they need that help and that support. So they're not thinking, well, James is going to be in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. They're just crying out. They need that help. They need somebody to answer that phone to stop them from doing what they're going to do. And I see so many examples of well-meaning people saying, you know, I'm here for you anytime. But for somebody who's suicidal, especially a man, somebody suicidal, if they phone their best mate and they're in bed, they're not thinking, oh, it's 3 o'clock. They're thinking, don't care.
I need my mate.
I've just justified in my own mind that people don't care. And so they go off and end their life, unfortunately. So I think, you know, the conversation on social media needs to have caveats in there. You know what I mean? If somebody's saying that I'm feeling really low, I'm not feeling good, or I'm not feeling whatever, you know, whenever I respond to anybody like that, I always say, look, I'm here should you ever need it, but there will be times when I'm not going to be available. And I will give the Samaritan's number or Papyrus's number, or somebody I know will be in a position to be 24/7. You know what I mean? So I always make it clear. So, you know, well, there will be times, and if I don't answer the phone, it's not because I don't care. It's because, you know, I've got other things, I've got life going on in other things. So first instance, please phone these numbers, and then we can go from there, and I'll be that support mechanism afterwards. But we just need to change the language again on social media. Instead of saying inbox me anytime, and then not being there anytime. You know, you don't know what people are thinking inside the mind, and when they're at that point of ending their life, unfortunately, logic sort of goes out the window, and they just have it confirmed. Right. They just have it confirmed that people don't care, which is not the case.
Yeah, and that signposting is important. My god sister works as a volunteer for Samaritans, and had a coffee the other week, and she was just telling me, you know, just kind of like the percentage of people that ring between men and women, between those that want, you know, feeling suicidal versus, you know, there's another reason they're ringing, and she said, yeah, it is traditionally high. It's the majority of calls of people that are feeling suicidal, not by, you know, not talking 80-90, but certainly the majority. If you think of categories, it would be the biggest category, and she said it is, you know, predominantly men in that category. So, you know, they're a brilliant organization, you know, and so I think that is good for anyone, you know, who is needing to talk or knows someone that needs to talk, is, you know, to be signposted or signpost others to places like the Samaritans.
I think it's important to remember. I think it's important to remember as well with the Samaritans, you know, and the marketing job has done a magnificent job in making people fully realize that they are there for people who are feeling suicidal, but they're also there for people who are not feeling suicidal, who just need that safe space to just offload. You know what I mean? I think that's an important message to get out about Samaritans as well, is, you know, they're just a safe space. So you don't have to feel suicidal. If we can nip things in the bud, and if that offloading session is enough to just calm things down and give you a little bit of clarity, then get using that service as best you can, because the more people who use it, the more they can go to agencies and get more money to support it, because it is such a valuable resource to have. You know, but it's not just suicidal people, it's people who are feeling quite low, who just need that safe space to be heard.
Just thinking, kind of bringing this to a bit of a close, as someone that is a parent, I'm sure you're often, and I know you're often kind of giving your two lads, Ben and Jack, advice. But if you were to meet young Dave Heffernan, let's say 17, 18, you know, that impressionable age, doesn't know what life has ahead of him yet, but you've got the wisdom of knowing what's ahead of him. What kind of bit of advice would you give to you at that age?
I would say it all makes sense. You know, whatever you're going through, it will all make sense. Because at 18 and 17, I was homeless, as you know. 18, I ended up in a homeless hostel. And around that time, I'd also been arrested for arson and charged. Unfortunately, a low-level drug dealer said it was him and confessed to it when they found out that I'd been arrested. So at the time, none of it made sense, because I still felt I was a good, decent person. You know what I mean? I was setting up a childcare club whilst living on the streets. And that could have quite easily sent me into a spiral of depression, because when you feel like you are a good person, you're just trying to do good, you're trying to, you know, do the right thing, yet all this stuff is hammering you. You know, it's very easy to fall into the trap of, you know what, what's the point? I'll just give up and I'll do something else. So sitting here now, feeling the content that I have and the fact that I've got no regrets on anything that I've done, I would say just be mindful it all makes sense.
I like that. I like that. Trust in the process. I think I heard someone, or I read a quote that, and I can't remember the exact words, but I liked the sentiment of it. And it was something like, don't, you know, if you are religious, don't look to God for the answers of why stuff is happening. Trust that he's got a path, and it's the right path, and trust in him. And, you know, if you're not religious, I think it's just about trusting that things happen for a reason. You know, as you said, you know, there's a reason for it. Go with it, make good decisions, be healthy, live healthy life, be kind to people, listen to people, talk to people, care for them, and trust in the process.
100%.
I like that. Perfect. Dave, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I'm going to, obviously this will be live, it's live now in the Facebook page. I'm going to share it across a couple of the other Momentus social media platforms today, but I will then next week share it a bit more. I'm going to put contact details there for you. So if people watching now or on replay want to get in contact with you, they can. If they're interested to talk to you because they want to talk, if they're interested to work with you, have you to go along to do some of your training or, attend as a keynote speaker, then thoroughly recommend that you get in touch with Dave. Dave, thank you very much again and have a fantastic afternoon.
You too. Thanks, James. Appreciate that.